Hey, everyone. It's February. Man, anybody else feeling like we're in like the actual start of the new year? January is that kind of weird stage where budgets are coming in. We're kind of acclimating to being back in the office after a little holiday break. And then there's this slow period where I felt like nothing was happening, a lot of kind of indecisive. Where should we start? What should we do? And man, this week I'm feeling like it's like click. Let's go. We're ready to start going. And so I'm sure that you, like every other marketer and corporate executive that I'm speaking with, are experiencing demands like never before. Budget challenges, budget uncertainty, and is requiring us to get creative. Something that, I was talking to a client yesterday that, hey, despite all of this, the customer is not sitting around saying, oh, I'm sure X brand is under tight constraints and maybe has less staff or doesn't have as much budget. So I don't really expect personalized, relevant messaging from them. Of course not. That's ridiculous. Brands, consumers' expectations of brands are unchanged and really probably increasing and as we go. So we all share the same task, regardless of budget challenges and uncertainty to deliver on that. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited for our guest today, Mike Colombo. He leads the Adobe practice here at WillowTree, and this is something that he's helping clients with all day, every day. Clients that have one of the largest, if not the largest, platform stacks in the industry. And commonly, it's common that these brands have acquired these platforms and don't always leverage them to their true capability. And that's something that Mike is an expert at, is helping brands do exactly that. And you'll hear some analogies that he has. So I'm excited to have that conversation. Billy's out on PTO this week, so I get to do it just Mike and I. Also, the Super Bowl's coming, and WillowTree has deep roots in the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of activity happening here in our walls around the Super Bowl and excitement. We've had a partnership with Fox for as long as I've been around, and had the opportunity to, over the past few years, build the mobile application for Fox Sports that live streams the Super Bowl. We've seen record numbers every year, and it's tracking on and looking like that's going to be no different this year, that more and more people are turning to streaming. So we've also got some Philly folks in our office, and man, I don't know if there's much there's some more extra than a Philadelphia sports fan, and so they're in the Super Bowl, and I don't know. I'm just keeping my mouth shut. That's all I'm going to say about that. I don't want to rile anybody up, especially my boss, Mike Moore. Who's a Philly Philly and blood guy. So I'm rooting for you, Mike. I'll root for the Eagles. But also last year we had the opportunity to be part of the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show application. So I'm having a little bit of nostalgia as I think about the halftime show. Last year I was like all in. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg. We were building the application. I honestly don't even know who the Super Bowl halftime performer is this year. Pepsi's no longer the sponsor, so I have checked out. So I'm gonna have to get more prepared and get up to it and see. Oh, it's Rihanna. So yeah, there we go. I was about to say T Swift. I'm not sure if she's hosted the Super Bowl. This is where I need Billy. This is what happens when Billy's not here. I get off the rails with pop culture a little bit. So, it'd be interesting to see after last year where Pepsi put tons of marketing dollars behind this Super Bowl event. And when I say tons, they really invested building mobile applications, product releases. And this year with new sponsorships, it'll be interesting to see how it's leveraged from a marketing perspective and from a brand perspective, because Pepsi had really created this kind of cultural icon around their Super Bowl halftime show sponsorship. So I'll be interested to see a lot of new things in the market. But as we again move into February, it's time to get to work, you guys. And Mike Colombo from the WillowTree Adobe practice is we're gonna jump right in with him. This is gonna be low fluff. Let's talk about how can we optimize these tools that we have. And so look forward to talking to Mike and thinking about how we can start to get to work here in 2023. Let's talk to Mike. What's up, Mike Colombo? Welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Hey, Billy. How's it going?
Oh, great. Well, excited to have you here today. And I was talking before when I introed you, that I'm feeling like a shift from January to February, like where all of a sudden it's like, let's go. It's actually time to get to work and enough calibrating. And I was kind of teeing you up as the expert or an expert on helping brands optimize and figure out this huge platform that is Adobe. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that today. You lead our Adobe practice. You're the managing director of the Adobe practice here at WillowTree, and that's a big role. But before we get too much into the platform stuff, can you give us the backstory of how that came to be and tell us your story a little bit?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I started an agency when I was a kid, basically, just out of college with a buddy of mine. So we started, almost 20 years ago in Boston. And, we kind of started out as, sort of a design studio, honestly, and, doing a lot of getting, kind of backing our way into digital through, some of the real big agencies in town, Arnold. We worked with Goodby Silverstein in San Francisco on HP and things like that. And they were just getting into digital for the first time. So, in those early days, we kind of started in the web world, but our Adobe relationship was more like, Photoshop and Flash and Cold Fusion and things like that. As we kind of grew up, we started to get more into, kind of the enterprise platform side of things. And so as we went from, kind of working on those early digital campaigns to, the corporate.com, that was a big, jump in sophistication. But then, you see over the last, 5 or 10 years, just how sophisticated that's become from a tech stack perspective. So, that was kind of our trajectory. We then, have always sort of been around the Adobe ecosystem. I was talking about enterprise flex applications at Adobe Max in 2006, I think. So long time in that world. And, over the last, I would say 6 or 7 years, really, as Adobe has kind of acquired all of these pieces in the stack. So, the CMS, which is now was AEM, now it's Sites and Assets. The marketing automation system, which was Neolane, is now Campaign. Omniture, which is now Analytics. All of these pieces started to come together into this real sort of behemoth of a marketing platform, and so we built our capability really around that, in where that, the kind of best talent was in that space. So we found that particularly on the AEM side, which is where we were doing a lot of work, a lot of that, kind of rock star talent was in Europe. That's where the product originated. So we built a really kind of high functioning, extremely talented team in Europe, and then sort of other skills in Boston as well. And so we started to grow up sort of in those two areas in Europe and in the US. And then just over the last year and a half, we made the decision to join the WillowTree family. So the agency was Mark. Now we're a part of the WillowTree family, which is super exciting. Yeah. And now we're doing together our first Adobe Summit. I've been to Adobe Summit about 10 times probably. So this is the first one we'll do together as a new group. So pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I get to tag along on that Adobe Summit train. I heard that Shaq is going to be there, so for some reason,
Yeah.
You're focused on all the like kind of Adobe specialized things, and somebody told me Shaq was going to be there. I'm like, okay, I'll come as well. So
yeah, former Boston Celtics, Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah.
Yeah, former. Yeah, okay. That's definitely his legacy for sure. Yeah, excited to. I've heard it's quite an event, and as I've gotten to work and closer with you and closer to the Adobe platform, I'm blown away that it's some of the largest companies in the world. A lot of the largest companies in the
Right.
world are leveraging the platform, and like in some ways, and so presents a lot of opportunity to kind of create really great digital experiences that Billy and I are talking about on this show all the time.
Yeah.
You've recently helped refine and define kind of our viewpoint on the Adobe platform, and I always joke everything comes in pillars, and so we any good strategy has some pillars to it. But
That's right.
I'm curious if you could share, our Adobe messaging pillars that we've started to focus on when looking at the platform.
Yeah, totally. So I think, we talk to customers obviously all the time. Like you said, pretty much every big company at this point has Adobe around somewhere. And so, what we see a lot of times is, there's folks with, all of these products, and, they've bought, a bunch of SKUs from Adobe. And then it's, how do we actually get the value out of this? So, we know, roughly, we need the marketing automation system to do X, and we need the content management system to do Y. But we feel like the value is in X and Y kind of coming together and working off each other. And I think that's where a lot of the challenges. And so the kind of top line message, top line strategy is really unleash the power of the platform. That's really what we feel like is the biggest need in the market right now. I think
Yeah,
a lot of companies have something stood up, right? It's just a matter of how do we get sort of the full value. So that's sort of kind of our overarching story. How do we get there? Is in the first pillar of the strategy, it's focus your ambition, right? So I think that's, again, for marketing leaders, for digital leaders, need to have a really clear roadmap, need to understand sort of what capabilities do we have today, what capabilities are we hoping to get out of this, how do those capabilities map to a customer journey, and how do we kind of take advantage of the best parts of the platform. The other thing is it's always evolving, right? So there's new technology, new products coming out all the time. How do we make sure that we're not duplicating functionality, that we're leveraging the latest and greatest, that we're not on a legacy, even in the Adobe kind of sphere. So
yeah,
focusing your ambition, I think, is key. And then orchestrating your infrastructure is the next piece, and that's really, I think we all know that future architectures are more what they call mock based architectures. So that's fundamentally kind of microservices and API based headless implementations, things like that. And Adobe's platform now is set up really well on that front, whether that's commerce or content and assets, and you can leverage almost all of it as a service. So I think understanding that, sort of building for the future alongside understanding you're not going to ever sort of rip and replace an architecture or an infrastructure. You're always going to be kind of operating side by side, but we feel like the next thing you do should be pointing the sort of the path to the future. So that next implementation, make that the cloud-based implementation, the headless implementation, et cetera, and
yeah,
then bring the other products you have alongside that. So orchestrate your infrastructure, I think, is point two, and that's really important. And then the third point is then sort of amplify the experiences, right? So it's about, once we have sort of that vision where we have a roadmap, we are all kind of understanding from the customer out, but also kind of from the bottom up. So from a enterprise capability standpoint, what do we want, but also what do our customers need? Once we have that vision, once we have the platform architected properly, then we're looking at kind of speed to market, velocity, and innovation. How do we leverage design systems? How do we best leverage component systems inside the infrastructure, et cetera, so that we can move more quickly as marketers? I think that's ultimately, those, to us, it's unleashing the power of the platform is one, you sort of 1 + 1
yeah.
= 3 there.
Yeah, I love that focus your ambition part, because it seems like so many brands get caught up, particularly when they're kind of acquiring these platforms, buying these platforms, in the unleash the power
Yeah,
part. And that's probably because, that's how the platforms sell. Here's
right.
the capabilities you're going to be able to have. Here's all the out of the box configurations. And it's really easy to get caught up in like, this is going to be easy and it's going to be incredible. And forgetting the path to what it's going to take to get to that place. And it takes some work, and it takes
Yeah,
some intention and planning. And so often I think brands are underestimating the path to get there. And yeah, I love that focus your ambition. Like, what are you really trying to get to,
yeah.
and how are you going to get there? That's
Yeah, and
critical.
what's it actually going to take, right? Because I think there is a lot of promises that get made about this is going to do this out of the box and that kind of thing. Like any enterprise software, the reality is obviously something different than that. And so understanding that lift, understanding what it's going to take from an investment standpoint in order to get value, what that value is going to look like at the end of the day. I think that's
Yeah.
really where we need to start with a lot of clients.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is going to be really tough and take a lot of investment of your time and dollars. Isn't a good sales strategy usually, and so it's not something that gets brought
Oh,
brought up. But most of the seasoned folks in the industry, I've noticed, have seen this movie before, and are
yeah,
are are, are able to plan ahead. But
totally.
you use an analogy that I've ripped off a couple times. I don't know if I always attribute it to you, but you'll have to forgive me for that. But I was
I'm
curious,
sure I
like
stole
this
it.
the Ferrari analogy.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think that's what we hear, sort of from clients, is sentiment that, we bought the Ferrari, but we can't get it out of the garage, right? So, it's awesome, looks great, but we really don't know how to get it, kind of up on the highway and do it what it does best. So, that's sort of, I think what Unleash Power of the Platform is really all about is how do we get that thing out of the garage?
Right. Yeah, I joke sometimes, like the Ferrari sits in the garage and they drive their Honda Accord to work every
Yeah,
day. It's like we can edit pages on our website, and we can do basic things. Like,
yeah,
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 that's great, but you don't need the best platform in the industry in order to do
that's right.
that. So that's certainly not why brands purchase that. But like, do you think so many brands get to that point because they've kind of skipped some of those steps, or like, why do you think? Because this is not like just every so often we see a brand that's in that position. We hear this all the time. This is common. Why do you think it's so common?
I think it's just from a kind of the way enterprises are organizing themselves, and also I think the skills, no matter what platform you're on right now, it's a niche set of skills. There's that kind of that famous Martech graphic, right, which was once whatever 500, now it's 5
Yeah,
million, I don't know.
yeah,
But
right.
all of those require niche skills of some sort. So even though Adobe is kind of the major player in enterprise, there's all sorts of kind of new stuff coming out all the time. Who understands how segments in the CDP connect to what you're doing in campaign or what you're trying to do in target. Who really in the enterprise can do that, right? So what ends up happening a lot of times is like in everything in enterprise tech. I know WillowTree's deep legacy in mobile has got a kind of similar thing. Is things start getting into silos, right?
Yeah,
So, it's, the campaign sending folks, and then the content people are over here, and then analytics and insight, data and insights are over here. And, it's not a great, who owns, kind of segmentation in the marketing organization, things like that, I think
yeah,
is where there's a lot of struggle. There's not a lot of that, you need, kind of these Swiss Army knife skills now in order to operate, effectively across the whole stack. So there's not a lot of that. I think then the other thing is on the tech side of things. So that's sort of the practitioner side of things. On the tech side of things, it's probably even worse in a lot of cases, because what's happening in a lot of companies is they're asking IT to kind of staff these very niche technologies. How many
yeah,
Java engineers out there are experts in AEM? Not many, right? So that's obviously why Adobe has moved a lot of this to the cloud and tried to make it more turnkey and more agnostic of technology and things like that. But that's another problem, is I think finding those technical skills. So, our story always is, we'll be that glue, right? We'll help bring together the strategy and the design, and then also, that kind of practitioner excellence, in real product expertise, and then also the engineering skills to kind of make that work. But it's not easy. I think that's the
Yeah.
short answer.
Yeah. And to kind of wrap this up, this particular point up, if a CTO is listening and they're about to embark on a new implementation on the Adobe platform, outside of what you shared already, are there any words of wisdom of common mistakes that you see when starting a big implementation?
Um, I think it's probably sort of a cliche, but I think it's preparing for scale is a hard thing
Yeah.
for a lot of people to imagine, and I think the reason for that is both their ability to understand how are we going to scale this across business units, entire across the enterprise, multiple brands, all of that kind of stuff. That insight a lot of times comes from the sort of advice they're getting comes from either Adobe themselves or other SIs or folks like that that may not have the experience on the practitioner side. Like, how is this actually playing out in the field? And I see that a lot of times where, oh, well, we assumed, we're going to have a single design system and a single set of components, and this is going to work flawlessly. And it's like, well, you've got 15 different business units and 150 different websites. You might have to think about how versioning might work in your component infrastructure, things like that. So there's a lot of nuance to scale, right?
Yeah.
That I think is where a lot of kind of a lot of companies, I would say, get hung up. They sort of start down a path and then they realize, well, now we're sort of too far down to like
Yeah.
really get this scaled out.
Yeah, and we were in a car like not too long ago, and you kept using the phrase "people, process, technology," which is again almost kind of a cliche, but is all cliches are true. So it's so true in terms of it's not just this technology you're acquiring or implementing. What's the infrastructure and the process look like to actually deploying that? And for most organizations, it takes a fairly significant change or a partner to help kind of like you said be that glue. So
That's
you know
exactly right.
in this year, this is kind of always the case, but I think accelerated like at the current moment like I've not seen in a while. Executives are under intense pressure to deliver ROI.
Yeah.
And I have been saying on broken record, for the past few years, it's been all about experience, customer expectations. And those are always going to be there, but no longer are CFOs just kind of writing checks because the customer needs it.
Right.
Uh, ROI. So leaders are under just intense pressure on ROI demands and maybe reducing platform cost or optimizing platform cost. And then that's met with consumer expectations are continuing to rise, are at a place that they're expecting this personalized, know me, know the type of way I prefer messaging, and deliver it in that manner. And so sometimes those things are in conflict of each other. Brands are trying to cut costs, but consumers expect greatness.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, if for a leader in a position dealing with that, there's got to be some like low hanging fruit that digital leaders are missing. We just talked about all the really hard work, but do you see like common, just low hanging fruit that digital leaders are missing? Like, if you could just start doing this today on the platform, you could really start to drive impact. Any common things you see there?
Yeah, I mean, to me, again, a lot of that comes to systems thinking, right? So I think because we're talking about value, right? So we need to get to value more quickly. I think Adobe feels this acutely. They hear this from customers. I think we hear this from customers all the time. Like, we need to get to value quickly. We need to be able to tell that value story quickly. And so I think it comes down to a lot of times, like, just getting to launch is one thing, right? So, can we not screw this up for 2 years and not get to launch? How do we really, what's the best approach to getting to launch? And a lot of that, for better or for worse, has to do with choosing the right partner, to be honest. in getting you there. But then I think when the point I was just making about thinking in systems, like with these super complicated, they do everything MarTech stacks, which is really the world that we're in. Adobe or other, there are, kind of best of breed solutions, but even when you're stitching together best of breed, it's a, how are you like thinking in scale? So, I can give you an example, a client that we're working with, you know, how are we thinking about content that scales? So how are we thinking about in the Adobe infrastructure? I want to create, a set of promotions, let's say for my travel and hospitality company, and I want that, those promotions to be authored in one place because I don't have a ton of people, right? I have limited resources, and I'm going to have even more limited resources as we move here. Lots of layoffs, things like that. So I need to do more with less. So I need to be able to, put my
Right.
content in one place. I know I need that personalized, right? Because that's the whole sort of value in the platform. That's
Yeah.
why I have all these different piece parts. But I need to be able to like sort of push a button and have it do its thing on mobile, its thing on web, its thing, on digital signage. I need to be able to push that button once, and then I understand that promotion is getting personalized. It might be getting swapped out with different promos, different things, different offers, things like that, depending on the context, etc. So I need to be thinking about, how am I scaling? How am I scaling, design systems so that I can stand things up quickly? How am I scaling my, kind of code and backend infrastructure? And then how am I scaling my content and communications? I think those, like the getting to value part is out of the blocks. I need to get to value. I need to get to launch quickly. But then
Yeah.
once I'm launched, then I need to get to scale. I need to get to velocity, because that's where the value conversation is. The value conversation with anything the size of Adobe is not in that first website you launched.
Right.
It's the 10th, right? It's the 15th. It's the fact that I'm getting there quick. It's the fact that I can build a campaign and launch a campaign, and it can go to all my channels, and all of that stuff. I can do that more quickly, and I can also do it with less resource. So
Yeah.
to me, that's where it is about value. This year will be all about value. Next year maybe as well. We need to really be really good at communicating that and explaining that. And I think that's, for me, sort of where those value points lie on the
Love it.
Adobe platform.
Yeah. So Adobe Summit's coming up in March, as we said, in Vegas, and Shaquille O'Neal. But there's a lot more than Vegas and Shaq that's going to be going on at the Adobe Summit. What are you most excited about? I know you've been many times before. It's my first time. And what are
Yeah.
you looking forward to? I know we're showing up big to the
Yeah.
conference,
We're platinum
and
sponsor. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
platinum sponsor. But tell me what you're looking forward to.
I mean, that's going to be exciting, right? So it's the first time it's been in person since COVID. So getting back kind of in person on the show floor, meeting the Adobe product teams, et cetera, understanding what the roadmap looks like, what's coming, all of that stuff that, it's just harder. It's less fun. It's not in Vegas when
Right.
you're doing it over Zoom or whatever. So that part of it to me is super exciting. I think, understanding just what how we're moving clients to this sort of future proofed, I'll call it, to use spin a cliche term, but that this architecture that I think is going to be just a lot easier for them to execute on. Really excited to see how that works and what that means to the overall market. Obviously Adobe technology was really for very big companies, to be honest, for a very long time. I think
Yeah.
with the way that things are moving, I think there's opportunity to move down market a little bit,
Interesting.
to sort of mid large companies rather than just extremely large enterprises. So I think there's all of that is just, it's going to be a lot of fun to sort of be there and just be there in person again, and be talking to clients and talking to the Adobe teams as well, to sort of understand where we're headed.
Yeah, and we've got some content that we're publishing. Is that correct? What tell me more about that.
Yeah, so we have a whole bunch of stuff going on, kind of in the lead up to the show, and then we'll do some stuff for folks who can't get to the show. We'll do some things in Boston at the office after the show, to kind of
Oh,
an
nice.
unconference type thing, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, we've recently put together a piece, an ebook that kind of it follows the story that we laid out earlier, but it really dives deep into not all those, right, people, process, and technology. So both on the systems front, what do all the systems do? What do all these SKUs that you bought actually do? I think that's an important thing to lay out. What skills do you need on your team to execute? So what's that people part? And then I think process, it's about not just sort of marketing ops and workflow and things like that. Also about, how does design interact with engineering, and, how are we like executing on this across the marketing organization? So pretty excited about that piece. Put a lot of effort into that, and it's kind of, I think, the most exhaustive piece I've seen. That sort of covers the whole stack. So there's that. I think there's some other webinars and things like that. We'll also have obviously we're going to have a booth at the show. As a sponsor, we'll have a bunch of different demos there that I'm really excited about. So we'll be doing some of that kind of in run up to the show, but also, like I said, following the show for folks who couldn't make it, we'll have events in the office as well. So
awesome.
Lots going on.
Yeah, so that'll be on our website, and I will make sure it's in the show notes, so you can, if you're watching this episode or listening to this episode, you can check it out on the show notes. There's always a big perform. Like I was talking about Shaq. Isn't there usually like a big musical act? Do you know who that is this year?
I haven't looked it up. Yeah, it's always like U2 or somebody like that.
Okay.
Yeah, they have tons of celebrities at Summit.
So the Super Bowl's coming up, and before I was talking, do you know who the halftime performer is this year?
I don't.
I was revealing my ignorance, and I also did not know, but it's Rihanna.
Oh, okay.
It's Rihanna, and coincidentally, I was just telling this story. There was this article that popped up where a priest claims that he had a heart attack and died and went to hell, which is a whole nother topic. And in hell, Rihanna's Umbrella was playing on repeat over and over again. So right as that story's dropping, Rihanna's the headline for the halftime show. So hey, I love that song, but no, I'm not going to get into any more than that. But no, nice. So awesome. Looking forward to Adobe Summit and meeting more of the Adobe team, and kind of for my first time jumping into this super powerful platform. Some of our clients are going to be on the main stage, and so it's going to be awesome. And
we've got a session at Summit as well. I should have mentioned.
Yeah, awesome.
On financial services, so with one of our clients. So that'll be super exciting as well.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Well, looking forward to that. Check out the material that we're publishing. I think whether you're in the Adobe platform or not, I think it's super relevant content and valuable. Some of the principles that we follow. We like to also not just talk about cool tech stuff as we have guests, and Mike, introducing you to many of our listeners. We recently had the opportunity to have dinner, and you started telling me about your some of your Maine, the state of Maine, some of your Maine adventures, and you're working on some land there. And I keep thinking about that ever since we talked about that. I don't know if it's like winter, and I'm like imagining this like cozy place in Maine. Tell me what I'm missing. I've never been to Maine. Tell me about this land that you're working on.
Yeah, Maine was invented for winter, I think, but Maine's awesome. It's awesome in the summer as well. I think for me, it's a lot of the really cool kind of natural stuff that you'd love about the Pacific Northwest or something like that, or even other parts of New England, Vermont, etc. But it's got that like really spectacular coastline, that kind of rocky, lighthouse filled coastline. So it's a great place to read or write a book, I'd say.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and I just imagine lots of fireplaces. That's what I've got going on in my head.
There'll be lots of fireplaces. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, not surprised. And then just one parting question. Billy is out this week, but she has this question she loves to ask our guest. And inviting on the podcast. I rave about Delta about every other episode. It's getting old at this point. But we love to like talk positive trash, as she refers to it, about a brand that you're truly loyal to, or that a brand that's doing things in marketing that's super interesting to you, that fascinates you. But tell me, who do you love and why on a brand perspective?
That's a tough one. So I'm a bit of a sneakerhead, so I love my sneakers, right? And Adidas and Nike, probably Adidas, I guess. But I think in general, I gravitate toward brands that stand for quality and something else, right? So like the product stands for quality, but also there's sort of meaning behind it. And I think you can't probably capture, this might be a cliche, might have come up on the show a bunch of times, but you probably can't capture that better than some of the outdoor brands. And I would say like a Patagonia or something like that,
Yeah.
where,
I don't think it has come up.
they're just brilliant product, right? And then like the sort of ethical moral side of the
Yeah.
brand, that it's just something that is very very unique to for a brand to be able to pull off anything like that sincerely. Obviously it all comes from the top, and I think I also have an affinity for kind of founder led brands, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say it's probably Patagonia is what I'm most interested in, just from a pure brand perspective. But I do love my shoes.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, I had a Patagonia jacket repaired recently, and they offer these repairs, and it was $5.
Yeah,
Is how much they charge, and I think
yeah,
it's part of their sustainability. Instead of throwing the jacket away, buying a
yeah,
new one, they repaired it for me, and it's like, wow, that's really incredible. What about
yeah.
have,
They
have
really live
you?
the values.
Are you familiar with the brand Filson?
Yes, I am. Yeah,
Yeah. And so, like, when I think about like quality out, I don't know what they stand for. I don't know a lot about their brand, but when you go in there, it's like, wow, this stuff seems like it will probably last. It would probably last through a fire.
yeah,
When you pick up and touch their stuff, you can tell it's insanely high quality. But yeah, love the outdoor brands. I think
yeah,
that's a new one. Everybody's mentioned Nike and Apple.
yeah.
But the first time Patagonia has come up, I think. So
Patagonia,
that's
North
great.
Face, like I think those brands that like have to perform. Like there's something about the product has to perform. I think we as a part of what I was so excited about with WillowTree's, we sort of have this shared ethos around craft and quality, and I think
Yeah.
that to me, those brands that have to perform, I feel like we're in that place a lot of times, right?
Yep.
So I can appreciate with the struggle, but I really like
Love it.
those kind of products that can live that out.
Yeah, I would love to talk to a marketer from North Face because I always think about their customer segmentation where you can buy a hoodie that like a regular person that's never been in on
Yeah,
a trail ever would buy, and then you can buy a suit that you would like hike Everest with.
that's
And
right.
like, how do they
Yeah,
segment their customer base is something that kind of blows my mind, and
yeah,
would love to hear more about that. But
yeah.
anyways, Mike, so good to be with you today. Thanks for coming on the show, talking a little bit about Adobe. And we'll make sure after Adobe Summit, I think we're going to maybe try to do some content at Adobe Summit, and you'll see some
Yeah.
stuff rolling out from us. So
And
make sure we circle back. Awesome. Yeah, check it out. And thanks again, Mike. Cheers. We'll talk to you soon.
thanks, Billy.